I have a dream, oh, I have a dream. Red, white, and blue, fly free, fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Welcome to Changing Times. I tell you what a beautiful day in Southwest Missouri, Springfield. We are at the Axe Media Group office in Springfield, Missouri, and Changing Times is on every Wednesday from 10 a.m. to 10:45. I am Lynn Morris.
And I'm Dawn Blackard.
And we talk about social issues, real discussions, real solutions. And I tell you what, we have a great lineup today, Don. We've got two great guests. One is definitely an expert in many reasons. One is because of the distance he came from Minnesota. Is a little bit of distance from Minnesota to Springfield, right?
Yes.
And we are the resident, though. A guest is from Springfield, Missouri, and so we're going to introduce them. But Don, before we get started, how do people, I know they're watching us live today, right now, and we really appreciate that. We really appreciate you telling all your friends and family members, people you go to church with, work with, about our show. This is our 12th week. But how can they follow us, and what do they need to do?
Well, they need to go over to the Axe Media Group page, and they need to like that page, and then they will see us every Wednesday at 10. But they can go back and look at all the great shows that we've done so far. We're also on YouTube, so they can find Axe Media Group there. So there's a couple of different ways they can find us. But invite your friends and family over to Axe Media Group, because right now we are doing a promo where we're giving $100 each week to someone new that comes over and is a follower of Axe Media Group.
Well, very good. We've had at least two winners I know about. So we got another one for this week.
Yep.
So be sure and do that, and good luck. Hope you win the $100. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. So Dave Noakes, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. Thank you, sir.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate it. I met you last Friday on my radio program and got to talk to Kendall on the phone. He was in Dallas that day. It kind of shows you where he's traveling to all over the country for this great cause. And I want to tell the listeners a little bit about you. You're a retired 30-year police officer.
Yes.
So thank you for your service. And then after you retired, you worked for Department of Corrections for 7 years as a parole officer. And that's a very important position too. And then, you graduated from Drury University, which is a tremendous university right here, a private university in Springfield, Missouri. And then you also attended and graduated from the FBI Academy. You've got a tremendous record in law enforcement, and you've been retired for a little while, but you've gotten involved in critical race theory through your church and educated yourself about it. And so the two things I really want to try to get across, at least today, is one, how does critical race theory affect, say, law enforcement in Springfield, Missouri, and other areas of the country, as well as, unfortunately, it's pretty well intertwined in the Springfield school system. Mm-hmm. Springfield school system, for anyone that does not know, is the largest school system in the state of Missouri. As a legislator the last 8 years up in Jefferson City, it was always interesting to note that St. Louis and Kansas City are much larger cities, but Springfield has the largest school system, about 26,000 students. And so it's in those critical race theories being taught in that school. So Dave, let's kind of talk about law enforcement first. I mean, the guys today, they've really got a hard job. They've got a hard job. You had a hard job. You've always had a hard job, and it's such an important job. But now for some reason, we've got critical race theory kind of creeping up into some of the things that they're having to learn and talk about and stuff like this. And to me, it's just contrary to what we really need to be doing. What do you see?
Yeah, if you look at my main argument against critical race theory would be that the ideology that it states all of our institutions are systemically racist, which one of the institutions that we need is our local police. So it's calling my career, my fellow officers, what I did for 30 years, calling me a racist, systemically racist. That's my main argument. And then if you look at what's happened in the nation with Black Lives Matter, which follows that critical race theory ideology, putting people in groups, judging by their skin color, you can see the chaos that it has started. And police are the direct line of defense against that, and they're getting the brunt of it. And I've always said the power of the police officer doesn't come from the individual officer. It doesn't come from the badge he wears. It comes from the community that he serves. So once you start this critical race theory ideology, which tells you that your police department is systemically racist, you start to the community starts thinking you start to get rid of that community sport that supports the badge. Luckily in Springfield, the good news is we still have people that love their police department, and we have still a very good police department.
Well, I tell you what, I told you on the radio, and I really do mean this. I mean, I've got two signs, one in the front yard, one in the backyard, because I live on a golf course, 13 tee box, and so I've got a retired police officer, Dave, that mows my yard once a week, and he loves my yard because I've got these two signs, and I've also got the blue and black law enforcement flag that supports law enforcement, and he says I'm the only yard that he mows that has the law enforcement signs on there. But I think you're right. I think, fortunately for us in Southwest Missouri,
Yes.
Most of us understand the importance of law enforcement. You can't defund the police. You can't try to tear up the police department. Without law and order, we have nothing. And you see that in those large cities today, don't we?
Yeah, we do. And luckily we live in Springfield. And officers, I talk to officers, hey, what's going on? What do you see in the community? What's your perception of the support in community? They say, we're blessed in Springfield. We do have support from the majority of the people in Springfield. And they still get random acts of kindness. They'll have somebody, they'll be sitting and eating a meal, an officer will be, and they'll get ready to pay their check. And the waitress or waiter will say, hey, it's been taken care of. Or they'll go back to the patrol car and they'll get a note of appreciation and support from a citizen just saying, hey, great job. So so overtly, no one ever is elected as a Marxist. Marxism doesn't get elected into office. So you have to sneak it in. How you do that is you do the overthrow. You get people mad at each other. And that's how you get Marxism in there. So it's all this stuff about skin color and is just a distraction. They want to change our culture. That's the end game. That's what we have to keep in mind.
So it's divide and conquer.
It's divide and conquer. If you look at how that counteracts with policing, is that if you look at the 4 fundamental truths of C.R.T., and I got this from an Epic, it's either Epoch or Epic article in June 21st. The world is viewed through a group oppression matrix. There's evidence of oppression and equality between the groups. Peaceful dialogue, understanding, you can't have that. And also, because of the above, violence is justified to eradicate the inequities. So that's where the violence comes through. That's why C.R.T. is so harmful to the community. So that's why it's a hill worth dying on.
Well, I'll tell you what, it is, Dave, one of those issues, like many, unfortunately, in this country today, where it's pretty divided. We've got a group of people that I would say most of them are liberal people. A lot of them are my friends. We all have liberal friends that are good people. But unfortunately, there's a lot of those people that seem to think that this is the way our country needs to go. And then there's thank goodness, the group that we've got here in this room today, and a lot of our friends that says, no, this is not the way our country needs to go. In fact, we're fighting to keep our country from being destroyed from within. We all know that no country in this world is ever going to be strong enough to defeat us militarily. No one can beat us militarily. But I think what our enemies have found, whether they be enemies from outside the country or inside our country, I think they have found what they think is the secret: destroy us from within. And it's been like Dr. Mary Byrne was a guest of ours, and she's a good friend of ours. And so, she talks about the 100 years. It's taken 100 years to get to where we are. They didn't just start this last night. They didn't dream this thing up. This thing has been going on now for about 100 years. And they know that if they can rechange our minds of our kids, redirect the minds of our kids, and destroy our family nucleus where the kids don't respect their parents, they don't respect their grandparents, they don't respect educators, they don't respect law enforcement. If they can start to divide and conquer and number people off 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, you're oppressor, you're oppressed,
Mm-hmm.
and all this stuff. I mean, I'm telling you what, we could be in for very hard times ahead. And that's why I think this show called Changing Times is so critical for people. Tell us about, I heard that even in the Springfield police system and department, and there's such a great Chief Williams, Paul Williams is such a nice man
Mm-hmm.
and a very good leader. I'm not blaming him,
Mm-hmm.
but I've heard that there's people in the department that wants the law officers to study some Black Lives Matter videos and things like that. Uh, how's that gonna work?
Yeah, that was the other thing when I talked to some officers. Say, how's it going? They just hired a new diversity and inclusion director for the city of Springfield with a 6-figure salary. So I asked him, how's that going? Has there been any training yet? Thinking that critical race theory ideology will creep in to the employees of the city of Springfield. And one of the things he said, there's a news feed that the city of Springfield puts out on their computer system for online training, if you want to call it that, for helpful tips on, they call it inclusion solutions. And as you go through the website, it takes you to a website called, it's a Sojourners magazine, Sojourners. And that's a progressive Christianity group. And it links to articles and documents that will talk about allyship. They want you to be allies, and one of the organizations they want you to ally with is Black Lives Matter, and that's what's got officers upset on that part. So, if memory serves me correctly, Black Lives Matter has chanted death to police. So that is not going over real well with the police officers as far as the city's inclusion solutions. That doesn't sound very inclusive or leaving a group out there. Also, in that Sojourners documents articles that city links up to, they talk about white debt, white privilege, systemic racism. So it's not off to a good start. And I'm afraid that the oppression matrix will eventually find its way into the city of Springfield. And I hope that's not happening.
Well, I tell you what, so I want to make sure we're going to announce this twice. We're going to announce it the first half and the second half. So I want to make sure right now we'll go ahead and announce we've got Kendall Qualls here today, right now this morning, because tonight at 6 p.m. at the Glendale Christian Church at 2110 Blackman Road in Springfield, Missouri, he's going to be there. And we're going to have a bunch of people there to be educated on what's going on in critical race theory. But don't worry, everyone that's listening out there, if you don't live in the Springfield area, you need to know that critical race theory is everywhere in this country, all 50 states, and it's infiltrating our school systems. It's trying to change our government form that we have. And so better educate yourself. Start finding out what's going on in your school systems. We already have it in Springfield, like I mentioned, and now it's trying to get into smaller schools all around our area in Southwest Missouri. We're fighting like everything to keep it out of our schools, okay? And so tonight, if you live anywhere in the Springfield area, it is free. It's free. You just need to come at 6 p.m. Get there a little bit early because it's kind of like church. If you don't get there early, you're going to have to sit on that front row. So I don't know whether Kendall will pick on you or not if you're sitting on the front row, but you need to come. 2110 Blackman Road, Glendale Christian Church tonight. A bunch of great ladies have put this together, and so I'm very looking forward to listening to Kendall tonight and continuing to learn myself about critical race theory. So we're going to be running out of time, but what else can we tell, Dave, the people about critical race theory?
Well, other than the obvious, it's divisive. It doesn't cause unity. It actually causes disunity. And my main emphasis, I think you asked me last time, what are we to do? And then go vote. In April, we have 2 positions open on the school board that's open for reelection. Find out what your candidates think about critical race theory and the ideology, and vote for the candidate of your choice. Make an informed choice in April for the new school board election, and also city council. Do some research.
Well, I think that's good advice. I served on the school board at Ozark for 6 years, a very good school, one of the best in the state. And, I think that if you have a chance to serve, I think you should do that. Make sure that the school is doing what you need it to do. And then also, like you said, Dave, I think that making sure that you pick the right board members, school board members, to represent you and your family and all of your friends' families, I think that's extremely important. I've always said that if you don't get involved in politics, then you're going to be out of luck. You're going to be out of business. I was in business myself for 42 years, running pharmacies, and you're going to be out of business if you don't get into politics. They're going to business you out, and so you can affect local things. You can affect statewide. I know Kendall's going to be running for U.S. Congress, and it's harder for us. And I know that you should win. I hope you win, but it's hard for us here in Southwest Missouri, anywhere in USA, to really affect federal government. You have to pick the right people, but we don't have much say in the federal government, but we have a lot of say in local government. And so local government is really, I think, where you got to start. It's the most important thing to do. And so we'll do that. And I was going to ask you another question, Kendall. So I'm just kind of intrigued. You went to FBI Academy just to learn more about law enforcement, or what? You never did serve in the FBI?
No, it's what the FBI calls the FBI National Academy.
Okay.
They pick a certain 3 or 4% of the officers that are commander level. They get to go to the National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, for about 3 to 4 months, learn leadership skills. Mm-hmm. So I'm not a graduate of the FBI Academy as far as the FBI agent, but I was a graduate of the FBI National Academy for Law Enforcement, class of 2013. But it was a great experience. Got to do the yellow brick road and obstacles and all that kind of fun stuff.
All right, very good. Well, we just got a couple more minutes, but I do want to say one more thing, because this is happening all over the country. But in Springfield, Missouri, one of the best ways to get new recruits is through the police academy, right? You have that police academy, and then how many people enrolled this year in the police academy?
Yeah, the Springfield Police Department runs their own police academy, and so they recruit and they pay you while you go through the academy. I think it's about like 6 months, but there was 20 positions open in January and February. They only found 9 to go through the academy. At first, there's only 4. And then they said, we'll put it off for a couple months. And they end up getting 9 to start the academy, which is 420. They're down 43 officers, by the way, in Springfield. So ended up, now they only have 7 in the academy. And
2 have already dropped out.
2 have already dropped. Not everybody can be a policeman. It looks great on TV, but once again, in reality, it's a different matter. So, and they'll have a schedule. They plan on having 10 to 15 officers retire or leave the department before the end of the year. So it's very possible we'll be down 50 to 60 officers before December, and they can't find people that want to be policemen in this environment.
So it's a serious matter throughout the country. That we are losing our law enforcement officers, which is critical in this country. And we've got to do something about that too. I sure hope we can increase their pay, increase their benefits, and do whatever we have to do to protect them where they can protect us. If we don't do that, our country is really going to be in shambles. We see what it is like in some of the big cities where some of the mayors don't think they need the police. Well, they're absolutely wrong. It's been proven over and over again. You have to have law enforcement. So I think we're ready to hear our ads and take a break.
Acid. Relief.
We're back with Changing Times. Well, we're going to get started with the second part here, talking about CRT. And I'm going to let Lynn go ahead and introduce our special guest.
Well, sure, I can do that. So Kendall, we kind of know each other because we talked on the telephone last Friday. Really appreciate you calling into the radio show. But you're from Minnesota,
Right.
and you've got a great family. I know that, and I also know that a little bit about you, about your parents, and unfortunately, you had divorced parents, like a lot of people out there have. So, I mean, unfortunately, this is one of the other problems that we have in our country that we're going to be talking about is social issues. Is every child needs a mom and a dad, don't they? And so that's a problem. I thought about that during Father's Day. How many kids don't have a father? They need both. But you are president of an organization called Take Charge. Mm-hmm. And you've got a group of people, and you've been God led to work on this critical race theory. And you've done that. You've got several master's degrees. I've only got one master's degree in healthcare administration. You've got several. So right. You're a lot smarter than I am. So I appreciate that, and then you've been in healthcare. Donna and I both are in healthcare. My wife's a healthcare nurse and a nursing home administrator. So we're all kind of in healthcare, except Dave, he's the lone guy out, mm-hmm. law enforcement. But you've run some big healthcare companies and things like that, big companies like J&J and what was the other? Medtronic. That's the largest, I think, on medical equipment. So you've done that. So we really appreciate that you're taking it, and you're going to run for U.S. Congress.
Well, I ran last cycle. I haven't declared as a candidate yet. I'm telling people right now that I'm not saying no to anything right now, and we'll consider that while I continue to move forward with Take Charge.
Well, I would tell you, I would hope and we'd pray for you to win. I told you the first time I ran for office, I got beat by just over 100 votes. And then after that, several years later, I decided to run again and won 12 races in a row. So it can be done, and you are worthy to represent our country. I know that. And that's what we need. We need people like you in U.S. Congress. We don't need some of the people that are supporting other countries and doing some of the things that they're doing. But so tell us how you kind of got into critical race theory.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about critical race theory and what it proposes, it's everything that I experienced in my life on the opposite side. It contradicted everything that I experienced in my life. And when you do the research on it and understand, first of all, it's a false narrative. First of all, they justify their reasons and justify all of their solutions based on racial disparities in our country. And so a lot of people will think about, well, what's all the racism going on? I mean, they don't understand where this is coming from. First of all, I clarify, it's not a Black-led movement. There's no Martin Luther King in the front of this movement. There's no Al Sharpton's not even in front of this movement. It's a leftist political movement using racial disparities to justify this approach. And I'll end with this one. But what I clarify when you look at the data is not a racial disparity issue. It's a two-parent family issue, because even two-parent Black families actually perform well in this country. Their children perform well. We have a huge, in the Black community, fatherless home issue that we're going to address later and we'll talk about later.
Very good.
Well, you have a wife, Sheila, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I just want to give a shout out to Sheila, because it sounds like you are away on the road doing this to, help educate everybody and doing what the Lord's leading you to do. So I just want to say thank you, Sheila, for sharing your husband and letting him hit the road. And you've got 5 kids and, a lot of responsibility back home, but you've got a lot of responsibility pulling you to be an advocate for what you believe in. And we just thank you for coming to Missouri. Minnesota is a long, long ways away, and we just really appreciate you coming here. What is the difference between the CRT and the civil rights movement?
Well, so that, first of all, that's a great question. So what I share with people is that in the early 60s, it was the last installment of the rights that were not given to former Black Americans, descendant of American Black slaves. What Martin Luther King was advocating for was two things. Number one, from a Christian perspective, we need to be consistent in our walk and our faith, and how we treat people. But number two is that as citizens, we were not given the full rights of citizenship as denoted in the Constitution. So a lot of the Jim Crow laws that kept, like my father, from actually applying for jobs that, if they were available, even if they were available, he couldn't apply for them. The social order of where they can eat and where they couldn't eat, all those types of things were not fully granted to Black Americans. The difference today is that my life and the way I live my life and things I've achieved in my life, very different from my father. In fact, what my sons and my daughters are going through today in their lives, very different from what I grew up when I was coming up. So there's no acknowledgement of how far we've come as a country, which is significant. And I can tell you, the thing with critical race, there is no end game. There is no giving constitutional rights because we already have them. Their end game is disruption. It's a false narrative about our country, and it's orchestrated. We've never had anything and a major push like this that pushed against every institution in our country, from K to 12, college, academic, studies, the military. All of these institutions can't be racist all at the same time because we've achieved so much. There is no better time to be a person of color, to be treated equally in this country, even before critical race theory started. It's a false narrative for their agenda.
So Lynn mentioned this earlier, but we're going to say it again. Tonight, we have an event, and it is at Glenstone Christian Church. It's absolutely free. It starts at 6 p.m., and they'll be able to hear you speak. It's at 2110 South Blackman Road. And that leads me to my next question, which would be, what can people do if they want to fight against the CRT movement?
Well, and I'll share this story a little bit tonight. Here's the issue that we're going to have to do as a country. We've been living off the blessings, and we've been living off the freedoms and fumes, I call it, of our grandparents and great grandparents. We didn't really have to do anything for our freedoms because, it's been granted to us from the sacrifices from generations ago. So we've been given it to us without any effort. And I tell people, as a kid, when I lived in Harlem with my grandparents, oftentimes they would heat our apartment by opening the oven, because a small little radiator in the back couldn't heat the whole place. Sometimes the pilot light would go out, and I would have to go crawl on the ground and, light the match to light the pilot light in our oven, and so the oven, would work and warm up the place. Well, the pilot light of freedom is going out in our country, and we're going to have to get down and crawl and get active like we've never have before. That's what I'm doing. I remember getting out and doing the dirty work as a kid, because that's what I'm doing now. We can't let that pilot light go out because it will never come back on as we know it.
That is really good. Absolutely. How can people get connected with your movement?
Sure. So on our website is takechargemn.com. So that's takechargemikenovember.com. There's information you can get on resources about critical race theory. On the resource section, you can sign up for email updates. Take a look at our videos. We're actually producing videos that connect with people head and heart. And that's one of the things I feel like in the conservative movement, especially the Republican Party, I make fun of the Republican Party that they can't tell you I love you without a spreadsheet. So we have videos that connect with people intellectually and emotionally, head and heart. And these videos are from people that we've recruited that want to help change the culture. I've never met them before. 6 months into this, doing Take Charge, they want to help change the culture. Everyone they're volunteers. No one's paid. And those videos having tremendous impact. Even a former Black Lives Matter leader who founded Black Lives Matter St. Paul was in it for a year and a half. And he realized, these guys, they don't care about Black lives. They don't care about Black families. In fact, they want to disrupt the nuclear family in the Black community. And they didn't care about the education of those kids. Our schools are just really, for the Black students in Minneapolis public schools, are so bad that we're really trying to push charter schools and school choice. Black Lives Matter lined up with the teachers union and said, no, we don't want school choice. So he resigned. And so we produced that video. It went viral 2 weeks ago. He's been on Fox News several times, radio stations all over the country. And those are the things we're using those videos to help communicate our message as well.
That's great. Will you just say that one more time for people of where they can find that
Sure.
at?
It's takechargemn.miknovember.com. And it's really the essence of my previous campaign. It's really the idea of your life. Take charge of your life, your family, and your community. As Americans, we don't need permission from anyone to make any decisions in our lives. And we need to stop having deference to local, state, and federal government to live our lives in a way that's consistent with our values and consistent with the Constitution.
That's great.
Well, one of the things that I want to kind of mention and kind of circle back to what you just said, I think people need to know this all throughout the country. I'm hearing that people, the leaders in Black Lives Matter, some of them are departing. They're leaving because they have, just like you said, they have figured out that the cause that they thought they might have been involved in, it's not worthy. It's not worthy. It's actually to destroy the Black families. It's destroy white families. It's destroy everybody. It's destroy your communities, destroy your government. And so a lot of these people have smartened up, thank goodness, and they're now beginning to pull away from the organization. And so I'm so thankful now that we have people, and you're finding people that can now spread the word the opposite way, because we need more of that. You know, I was mentioning, I think on the radio show the other day that we had done a I Love America 4th of July celebration on Springfield Park Central Square. And nice place to have little rallies and events. And we didn't know, but we had a lot of veterans there with motorcycles, and it was a good crowd. But we had about 50 or 60 Black Lives Matter individuals with their signs and their chants and things like that. They're pretty good making their chants out and trying to yell over the speakers. But actually, what happened, Kendall, was it was luckily I got to speak first, one of the first speakers. And so I didn't have to put up with this or be involved in it. I just witnessed it. But as the process went on, and it was a great honoring of our country and our independence. But all of a sudden, one of the young guys, Black Lives Matter members, with his flag, standing right side by side, much closer than you and me, Kendall, to the older minister that was speaking. And his flag, that Black Lives Matters flag, was flying in his face. We had the American flag on the opposite side, okay? And so the police didn't break it up, okay? The police did not break it up. I respect the police, and we don't want these encounters, and we don't want anyone getting hurt. I'm okay all day long, 24 hours a day. If you want to have peaceful protests, that's fine. But when you start getting into somebody's space and getting up on the stage and trying to disrupt and stop things, you know what happened that day? This is awesome. God, because it was a hot summer afternoon, God's created clouds, dark black clouds. And I said to this other minister, I said, I think it's coming over this way. And sure enough, the clouds came over Park Central Square. There was a thunder so loud, and then all of a sudden it poured down rain, and all the Black Lives Matters guys just spread out and ran off. Now the program was over by that time, but you know what? That way it was ended in God's way. Nobody got hurt, thank goodness. But they are disruptive. Yeah,
they are, and they have their own agenda, and it has nothing to do with this. There's no allegiance to this country, and there's no allegiance to what we know as civilized culture of family units. The biggest issue we have, and this is why this is getting traction, especially within the Black community, especially for when the white community looks at in the Black community, they see these huge disparities that have been going on for so long. They think there has to be something wrong. Something must be wrong with our system. What's wrong is that we went from 80% two-parent families to 80% fatherless homes in my lifetime without one initiative to turn it around. and we've accepted it. Now, when I say without one national initiative to turn it around, we're doing it with Take Charge. Here's the thing that we need to be concerned about. We need to have a national conversation about now, because it's spreading out of the Black community into the white and Hispanic communities. For the first time in American history, 50% of all births are to unwed mothers under the age of 30.
Mm.
And we've never seen this kind of social behavior in our public square before, because we've never had this kind of dynamic before in our country. And it's really a time for us to consider, hey, do we need to have a national conversation, value the family, and where we're going to get that virtue from is from biblical standards, and it's really back to the foundations and principles of our country.
Well, Kendall, I mean, just think about it. I mean, like I said a while ago, every child deserves and needs a mom and a dad. And this is definitely tearing up our communities and our lives, everybody, when they don't have that. You know, one of the things I think about, like Black Lives Matter and some of these people, some of the people on the left that want critical race theory and to just think they want to destroy our form of government. You got thousands of people every day coming from all over the world trying to get into the United States. They must see something that and have a hope that these other half of the Americans don't have.
Well, what I tell people, Lynn, is that African Americans do really well in this country. They love this country. And so, what are you talking about, Kendall? I said, Nigerians, for example. Nigerians earn 17% more than the average American. Not 17% more than the average Black American. They earn 17% more than the average American because they see opportunity in this country. They want to be considered Americans, and they haven't been indoctrinated like native-born Black have in this country.
And education is the key, isn't it, Kendall?
Absolutely.
You know, your parents didn't graduate from high school. My parents did. Actually, my dad probably because my granddad was superintendent for a while at school and things down at Bakersfield, a little tiny town in Missouri. And probably my dad wouldn't have graduated if it hadn't been for that. But good parents, but not very educated. And my brother and I were the first two people to go to college. And my brother has 3 degrees, including a doctorate degree. And then I've got 2 degrees and, and have had a very successful and blessed life because of education. And you have too. And we know that if we can get more kids, I don't care what color they are, just get more kids to go to college. And if they don't go to college, go to a technical college and get some type of training, and they'll make a lot of money today.
Well, I actually push the trades quite a bit.
Sure,
it's the quickest way to earn a good living for your family. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, own a business, that's the better route to go,
right.
Especially today.
Right. So there's definitely hope. I think that there's just as much hope today and chance to succeed today as there was 50 or 100 years ago. And you just have to want it and know what you want, have a plan. If you don't have a plan, that's why I always talk when I talk to students at schools. It's kind of like this. If I want to get to Minnesota where you live, I would not know how to do it unless now I got GPS, but you have to have a map. You have to have a map. You have to have a plan. You have to actually look and mark out where you're going to go. If you don't have a plan, you're right. So what do we always tell people?
Be the change.
Be the change, and we'll be back next Wednesday. Thank you for watching.
Thank you for having me.
That's what it means to really dream. 1, 2, 3. Can I get a